Glad to have you with us here on Under the Hood with Jonathan Hood. Thanks so much for downloading the podcast and checking us out on YouTube, youtube.com. Look for Under the Hood with Jonathan Hood. Time to talk some college football with a two-time Super Bowl champion, Southside Zone Howard Griffith from the Big Ten Network joins us here on Under the Hood. Howard, as always, appreciate the time.
Hey, no problem. How you been?
I'm great. It's college football season, so I'm great. I'm great. Are you
your,
kidding
your
me?
Bulldogs doing okay?
Oh, we're doing just fine, thank you. I was in the church the other day, man. I got a new way to be able to clap, man. I got this new way of being able to clap my hands. I just had that timeout mechanic, man. It's just a new way, man.
It's new
Kirby.
wave.
Yeah, Kirby showed me how to be able to clap my hands.
There you go.
They got away with one. That is for sure. as they played in the oldest rivalry in
Yes.
college. Yeah, beating up on Auburn. But I was very happy about that. Boy, Howard, we've got such a whirlwind here. I want to start off first. Let's give Northwestern their credit first before we talk about James Franklin. How is Northwestern able to hang in there, knowing that Penn State as a program's on the rope? But it didn't necessarily mean that Northwestern was going to win that game. So what stood out there?
Well, one of the things that I go back actually, I think it's 3 weeks now after they played UCLA. In the second half, Coach Brown was talking, or post game, Coach Brown was talking about just the fact, that they left a lot of plays still out on the field, and they needed to find out how to finish, and they needed to get into that. And quite frankly, that's what they've been able to do. And then you fast forward to last weekend, and they truly dominated this team. Penn State is supposed to have a much better offense and defensive line. You couldn't tell it when you turn the film on and watch it. Northwestern did a tremendous job of going into a hostile environment with a team on the ropes, and they were able to finish. And what was interesting about it is Northwestern wasn't perfect in this game. They made more than their share of mistakes, but it also, I think, shows you the resolve of the student athlete to be able to overcome some of that stuff in a hostile environment.
On the other side with Penn State, we know the story about James Franklin, the head coach of Penn State, being let go. Now, you can make numbers work however you'd like. I mean, we could say that Coach Franklin was 4-21 against AP top 10 opponents, 1-18 versus Big Ten foes in conference games. But I would still say that in the shadow of the paternal legacy, that James Franklin did a hell of a job as a head coach. It wasn't at the tippy top, Howard, but the point is that James Franklin turned the program around out of the darkness.
Yeah, I would tell you that James Franklin made them relevant once again. And he did a tremendous job of getting them back, and he took over in tough times. Now, Bill O'Brien was there for 2 years, and Bill O'Brien came in and kind of steadied the ship as well. He did his part, and he had a big part of what Coach Franklin was able to continue to build. But quite frankly, where was Penn State before Franklin took over? Before they made that run with Kerry Collins and Kajana Carter and those guys. Yes, I know it's a storied program, but they hadn't. It wasn't like they were competing for a national championship every other year. And Franklin has now put them in a position where that's exactly what is expected of them. It's a tough situation. Expectations are everything. I tell you that. I tell people all the time that probably 97, 98% of the programs that are in college football right now will gladly take the record that Coach Franklin has had at Penn State and have that for their own program. But in this day and age, when the expectations are winning national championships, and they talked about it too. They pushed their chips to the middle of the table, went and got, made the highest paid coordinator on the defensive side. Jim Knowles come in and take over the defense, but the defense never really, gained the traction that it had in the previous year.
So, Howard, how difficult is it for today's coaches, especially at the top level, blue blood programs, for the student athlete to be able to hold on to the rope, knowing that a lot of times a lot of these kids will be mercenaries going from program to program? When you played, you're going to lock in at least 3 years, definitely 4. But how difficult is it for James Franklin to be like, hey, man, we need to be able to lock in here, and then the players as a whole don't seem to get it?
Yeah, I think one of the things that happened is that their expectations were there, but I think one of the things when you look at why people were picking them preseason to win the Big Ten title. Some people had them as the number one team in the country. It was because of the veterans that they had coming back. Whether it was Drew Aller, who now is out for the season with the lower leg injury, whether it was the two running backs, whether what they had coming back on defense, they were pointing to all the things that we watched Ohio State do the previous year, that you watched Michigan do 2 years ago, and people felt like, okay, well, they've got all this coming back. Let's crown them. But the reality is, this Penn State team is not as deep at all as the Michigan or the Ohio State teams were that won national championships, and it was going to be an uphill battle for them, no matter what. And yeah, you could say, losing the games that it to UCLA and the Northwestern. That's not what this program has been built on, and it's something that they couldn't deal with. And it had gotten to a point, but this thing was bad. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Franklin is always with his daughters on the field before game, after the game, and this thing had gotten to such a fever pitch that he wanted his daughter to just go in before me, because you don't need to be involved in this, but they really are. And the way that fans were coming after him in this past game, man, have some respect and have some class. But when in this day and age, when the kind of money that these players and coaches are making, people hold no punches about letting their feelings be known, partly because nobody's really going to call them out on it. But it is unfortunate, but this is what college athletics has come to be.
I noticed that Franklin spends a lot of time on the field after the game. Usually
Yeah.
coaches and the whole staff is back in the locker room, but he stood there because he wanted to make sure that his family was cool. You don't
Yep.
usually see it like that, Howard. So that shows you how the seriousness of the nature of what was going
Yeah,
on
and
there.
it's also about his players too. He normally wants to wait for all his players to get in, particularly when fifth times are rough like they have been this year, to make sure that they all made it into the locker room, and then he goes in. But I mean, they have. The fact of the matter is, anytime it's gotten rough at Penn State, they really wanted Franklin out. I mean, it's
Mhm.
no secret to that. And he's found ways, because he's built a program that can go out and compete. Part of the problem is Ohio State was flying high when Urban was there, and they're still flying high. Jim Harbaugh was at Michigan and doing what they were doing there, and that's why I say it's kind of tough when you say, okay, well, the numbers are what they are. When you talk about top five, AP top five, AP top 10 teams, the record hasn't been there. But I would tell you this: it is going to be very difficult. It won't be hard, but it's going to be difficult for them to find the next coach that's going to be able to move the needle and move it the way James Franklin did, and can compete at a higher level. There are only a few coaches out there that are going to be able to raise the level of what the expectations are at Penn State. Now, they're out there, and I'm sure Penn State's going to be swinging for the hills for them, but are they really going to be able to get that person? Or are they going to have to go find a diamond in the rough to take over? And I don't know if this is a fan base that's going to settle for them finding a diamond in the rough and then waiting and trying to build.
Yeah, you want someone established if you can, like this man right here. How about Coach Signetti from Indiana? Let me tell you, Howard, I couldn't have been more wrong about this game because it's Oregon at home. Indiana has played tough, but I just want to give the flowers to Mendoza, the quarterback for Indiana, outplaying Moore, the quarterback for Oregon. I was just so impressed with that 30-20 victory. What did you like most about Indiana's resolve to be able not just win but just look strong on the road in that spot?
Good. The fact that they dominated the trenches on both sides of the ball. And,
Mm-hmm.
leading into this game, this is an Oregon team who had addressed a lot of those issues about how the offensive line or defensive lines were playing. They looked like a team, and still are. Let's be clear: this Oregon team isn't going anywhere. Dante Moore isn't going to have another one of these games where he just starts throwing interceptions. He was
Right.
pressed, and he needed to make plays, trying to make plays. But Indiana, at the line of scrimmage, has just been dominant, and they do it against everybody. Now all of a sudden that beat down that they gave Illinois doesn't look all that bad. Well, maybe Indiana is this team that people were wondering. This is a good team, a really good team, an elite team, a playoff team. That they're not going anywhere right now, and I don't expect them to slow down anytime soon. You mentioned Mendoza. He throws that pick, and it was had he had a little bit more time, I think he would have been able to get some more air under the ball. But
Mm-hmm.
only as Coach Sid could do, goes up to him, "Hey, you having fun yet?" It's a fun time you're having right now after that pick. But that's just how this team operates, man. And I'm gonna tell you, it's unbelievable. But you bring up Sig and you talk about Penn State. I would say this. I know that if you're Penn State, you have to make the call. But I
Sure.
find it hard to believe that Sig would leave Indiana for Penn State. And there's a couple of reasons why. Uh, Indiana gave him something nobody would give him, an opportunity at the big stage, and he's turned the program around, turned it, it made it a power in a matter of a year and a half. He's making a boatload of money, more money than he even imagined that he'd have an opportunity to make at this age and this stage in his career. So I believe there's a lot of loyalty that he has for Indiana. And also, he's like, well, I can win a national championship and compete for a nice national title right here in Bloomington. I don't need to go somewhere else. Where in previous years, if you wanted to compete for a national championship, staying at Indiana, staying at Illinois, staying in some of those places would not give you that chance. You would have to go to a blue blood to get that done. So I know that Penn State's going to be swinging for the fences, whether it's Sig, whether it's Lane Kiffin, all of these names that are being thrown out there. But we'll have to see. It's going to take a special person and a special leader to be able to take over this Penn State team because the expectations might be a little bit higher in that fan base than they probably should be.
There's something to be said about trying to be happier than happy. If you're Signetti, I think he's 63, somewhere in there. I know he's in the
Yeah.
60s.
Hmm.
And you're just like, you know what? I'm good. Like you said, I could just be in Indiana and do something that many have not been able to do here and not have the
Hmm.
pressures of the Penn State media, the Pennsylvania media coming down on me if I underachieve. Indiana will give him grace. He ain't going anywhere. And
Yeah.
and also that personality is so good for the college football game. It's so
Oh yeah.
peculiar the way he comes across, but you
Yeah.
just know that he's getting through to his players in that program. I think it's a positive for college football to have something like that in Indiana.
Yeah. Hoodie, I would have told you after the first interview, I said we're gonna have some problems with Sig, just the way he operates, the way he comes off,
Mm-hmm.
and then having an opportunity to get to know him a little bit better over this last year and a half. I mean, this guy is as down to earth as can be. He's just one of the fellas, but he's quite direct. He's gonna tell you how he feels, and it's one of those things where like Charles Barkley can say whatever Charles Barkley wants, and you can say, "Well, that's just Charles. That's just how he is." That's Coach Sig. He's going to tell you. You are going to know exactly what he means. It's not going to be him talking trash. It's not going to be any
Mm-hmm.
of that. That's just who he is, and that part of the game is what's been really so refreshing to watch. And Indiana's opened up the checkbook. It's just not for him. I mean, their defensive coordinator is making $2 million. So it's just not they're not doing football on a shoestring budget over there in Bloomington right now. So you can just imagine that they may have to go back into the coffers. But they're excited to do it because I mean we see pictures and videos of that fan base right now, and they're having the time of their life. So you've got a guy like that in place, you're going to want to keep him. And I think, like some programs, they have caught him at the right age where he's not chasing, he doesn't have to go chase something else. And this is a guy who's still sitting in the same Chase Lounge or whatever it is, the same chair that he's had forever. So he's not a guy that really wants a lot of change.
All right, we got to talk about it. There's layers to this in the Big Ten, is it not? With
Yep.
the Illini and Ohio State, the Illini could not run the ball. Ohio State, they didn't even have to play their best game, Howard, and they were able to get the
Mhm.
job done against the Illini. Good on the Illini, though, that you got a chance to have that acclaim, that national acclaim, by having Big Noon there and all that. But yeah, it just shows Ohio State, even with their say 7 out of 10 games, 6 out of 10 game, still can get it done.
Oh yeah, they're going to get it done. I mean, you look at their
Mhm.
roster; they're loaded. They probably have the best linebacker tandem in all of college football, with their ability to put their hand in the dirt, to run back in coverage. And Caleb Downs is, a next level generational talent. Uh, they've just got dudes over there. And the thing about it is, I think I've told you this, when you talk about this defense, it's really their ability to create matchup problems for you from an offensive standpoint. They kind of dictate the game defensively, where in most places offensively they're able to do it. But the line that were they able to do some things that a couple of teams, well, several teams haven't been able to do against Ohio State, and that's running the ball in the red zone and being able to score touchdowns. And they were able to do some of that, and they were able to be creative. And you think about all the explosive plays that this Ohio State team creates, they didn't give up those big explosive plays. So they're still, Illinois is still somewhere in the middle of in that game. They did some good things, but they were just outmatched at the end of the day when it comes down to a team like Ohio State. I mean, it's a reason, they're the number one team in the country right now. And as that offense continues to gel and come together with Bo Jackson running the ball, starting to emerge as that number one guy, the wide receivers, Carnell Tate, that dude is unbelievable too. He's a number one on anybody's team, if he doesn't have the other guy next to him. So,
Yeah.
this is a loaded football team that really seems to understand who they are and what they need to do to win each and every week.
How are we talking about all these coaches getting buyouts? Let's put some money in the pocket of a Tim Skipper and as a Jerry Neuheisel from
Yeah.
UCLA. They've won two in a row, man. But now let's put it out there now. Not enough talk about Tim Skipper. We see Neuheisel in the hair, and he's a legacy, and like no, 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 no. Tim Skipper is the head coach for UCLA. Now I will
Yeah.
say that this new look coaching staff now has really put UCLA in a good spot. Going into Michigan State on the road and beating them, again, for where UCLA
Yeah.
was tremendous, beating Penn State. But let's put some money in Tim Skipper's pocket and
Yeah.
Neuheisel's pocket, because
Yeah.
maybe they're not
Yeah.
together, but maybe they might get a job separately someplace.
Yeah, you got to really like what Skipper has done out there, and you're right. I think the new Heisel angle of this story is unbelievable. But one of the things that I take a little bit of issue with is when you talk about UCLA all the time right now, new Heisel is the face you see, and I get it. I get it, but Skipper's running the show. He's the one that said, "Hey, it's new Heisen's time to. It's time for him to start calling some plays, even when he hasn't." So, I think just the words that are coming out of there, the energy, the guys that don't want to be one hit wonders. They're really excited about playing, and it's really. I mean, you think about what's happened there, right? And what the turnaround has been after making the coaching change. And I know a lot of people. Deshaun Foster was a, a tough situation for him to be put in at the moment he was put in that situation as the head coach. But now, there's more energy. There's new energy that's been given to those players, and they're playing like it. I mean, when you look at that game, versus Penn State, they were the dominant team. And again, we talk about dominating the trenches. That's what they were able to do, and they're firing on all cylinders right now. And so now a team when you used to see when you were looking at the schedule earlier this year and you were like, yeah, we got UCLA, we can just chalk that up as a W. That's not the case anymore. So, we've had some teams that have that happen, but it really speaks to what happens when you have the right guy leading a program, how much energy can be injected into that program. And he's obviously pressing all the right buttons out there right now.
Yeah, one of the two of those guys can get that UAB job that football genius Trent Dilfer left behind.
Yeah.
So you can maybe
Another
that's a
buyout,
possibility.
huh? Another guy that gets
Trent,
a buyout. You get a
Trent,
buyout. You get a
yeah,
buyout.
Trent is smart. He got himself a buyout. He's a
There
smart
you
guy.
go. There you go.
Lastly, I do want to ask you about the game that people are circling, and that is
Oh.
USC against Notre Dame.
Uh-huh.
Want to get your thoughts about that. What I mean, to me, this is going to be fun to see because I think some looked at Notre Dame. We saw the game last Saturday. Looked like were much better offensively. Looked a
Mm-hmm.
little bit more crisp offensively than we saw.
Yeah.
And then USC, the talk of their demise is greatly over exaggerated. Looks like USC is going to be fine, but this matchup
Yeah.
is going to be fun.
It really is. And you think about, SC and where they are right now. Um, if you had told me going into the Michigan game that SC was going to be the more dominant looking team, as far as, again, going back to the line of scrimmage, I would have said you're nuts because they're going to try to win this game the way Michigan wins football games of running it. But that wasn't the case. I thought Lincoln Riley made a concerted effort to say, hey, we're going to run the ball and we're going to be physical. That is quite frankly, the thing that's been haunting him, as of late, that he doesn't have a physical football team. The way he calls offense is not a strong suit for the Big Ten. And so to me, last week's game versus Michigan was as much about him trying to send a message to college football that we can be physical and we're going to be physical as it was to be able to come out and show what they could do. But when you think about these two teams, both teams are going to run the ball. And you talked about looking crisp. Looks like Notre Dame is starting to get more comfortable with the defensive scheme that's being called there right now. So maybe they'll get things turned around. And every time it's funny. Every time you say, okay, well Notre Dame's done, they're out of the national championship picture somehow, right? They still continue to go out and put wins together, and all of a sudden you get down to the end of the season, and they find themselves with a spot in the playoffs. So this will be a big game for both programs, I think, but more so for I think USC as they're trying to get back to being one of the dominant programs in college football.
Howard, as always, I appreciate your time, man. I'm looking forward to this upcoming week, but man, I'm on the phone after this to try to get that buyout, man. I'm gonna call my agent, see if I can get me one of those. Man, I'm gonna give me a
Well,
nice like a Sam Pittman, get me a good Trent Dilfer, get me
man,
a brave Morgan State of Gundy. I need one of those.
yeah, you get your buy. And here's the thing, Franklin, if he wants to, he's going to be coaching again in a few months if he
He will.
wants to. If he
Yeah.
wants to. So, yeah, those buyouts are everywhere. Lincoln Riley's buyout is over $100 million. So, and the more games he wins, his buyout goes up. So, I mean, nobody wants to get fired. I get that, but the way these agents are writing these contracts, wow, it's a good time to be a college football coach.
It is. And all I always ask is if all these boosters and all these people that are supporting these buyouts, if you can't get better than what you have, then why are you doing it? That's all I ever ask. Like, you
Yeah.
want to do it, that's fine. But if you get that
Hmm.
hot coordinator or that hot assistant, that doesn't mean it's on the same level of the person that you fired. So,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Nothing like hiring a genius and advisor.
Yeah, I
Advisor
know.
on.
I know.
Everybody's looking for one.
Howard, thank you, sir.
All right, buddy. Be good. Have a great week.
Howard Griffith from the Big Ten Network with us on Under the Hood with Jonathan Hood. All right, coming up, we get a chance to be able to talk about some of the other games that really took place last week that I really, really enjoyed. We will talk about that, but first, let me talk a little bit about Aiken Law. 312-6 million for Aiken Law. Hey, you want to be able to talk to someone about injuries, issues that you have in your life. Aiken Law is right there. Injury Law Made Personal, 312-6 million. Keep that phone number in your phone. You just never know when you'll need Aiken Law. Howard's always there for you, 312-6 million. Injury Law Made Personal, slip and fall, something that happens at work. Hey, you need to be able to reach out to someone that will protect you. 312-6 million for Howard Aiken. Look at my guy. Go Dogs! Kirby Smart standing on top of a table as Georgia defeated Auburn, one of the oldest rivalries in college football. It was Georgia beating Auburn. And as I always say, Georgia versus y'all. That's exactly right. As you saw Kirby Smart just out of his mind as the Georgia Bulldogs got the job done. That was fantastic. As a Bulldogs fan, that made me happy. But I will admit something to you as we take a look at some of the games that took place over college football. I will just tell you that, yes, there is no question that Kirby Smart, the head coach for Georgia, is trying to call a timeout. And he says, no, I didn't call a timeout, and was able to get the refs to believe that he was just clapping his hands. He's out of his mind. I know. And I've seen the memes on TikTok making fun of Kirby Smart saying that this is the new way that you clap your hands in church, where you have the timeout signal to, or, you're clapping your hands and it's really the timeout. I know what he did. I know. And I will tell you, Georgia they were able to get away with one. There's no question there. I know. I watched it. But I also want to point out for Auburn fans that are salty about what happened, that Auburn had 237 yards in the first half and only 15 in the second half, because the Bulldogs poured it on in the second half, and Georgia is the better football team. They didn't play like that in the first half, but in the second half, things turned around. So the game was not based on a timeout or not a timeout. It was based on Georgia and their skill to be able to come back on the road to be able to get that done against War Eagle and Auburn. Get out of here, Auburn. You're done. Let's move on to another game. I just want to talk a little bit about what is going on with Texas and Oklahoma. So Texas and Oklahoma, that's a game I look forward to every year because it's a great rivalry, the Red River. It was kind of lousy. It wasn't a lot of offense there, and Texas was able to get the job done against Oklahoma. I just want to know from Sooners fans exactly what does this look like for the rest of the year? How many wins do you see Oklahoma having? They got to play, let's see, South Carolina, Ole Miss. They've got to play Bama. They got to play, I think, Texas A&M, I believe, is one of the teams, Mizzou and LSU. How many wins are left for Oklahoma? Texas, though, had enough offense to be able to win, so they got the job done there in that game. I look forward to that game, but that game was not as spectacular as it has been in the past. Let's see. What else happened in college football? Oh, yes. So let's talk about these firings to wrap up our podcast here. So James Franklin was let go by Penn State. I've been watching the Locked On Penn State and some of these Penn State podcasts over the last 2 or 3 weeks, and I'm hearing the host say that you've got to be able to get rid of James Franklin. And so what I would say is that James Franklin, 4-21 versus AP top 10 opponents, 1-18 against Big Ten teams in conference games, and he's going to get a $49 million buyout. What I would say about James Franklin is that when the program was not going in the right direction, with all the scandal with the Sandusky and Joe Paterno and the questions around that program, Bill O'Brien was the head coach, but then James Franklin over the last, 12 years has been able to have success with Penn State, but he's just a perennial bridesmaid. It is true. The athletic director said for Penn State that they need to win bigger games. And for the program that is Penn State does need to win bigger games. But I would just say that if you're going to fire James Franklin because you're tired of him being part of the furniture around Penn State, who are you going to hire to be able to elevate Penn State to win not just the Big Ten, but the national championship? I don't think that that's a thing. For years, I didn't trust James Franklin, even though early in his career, I thought, okay, maybe he's going to be this young and upcoming coach that can elevate Penn State, but they continue to fail in big spots. And I'm here to tell you that I made a lot of money on Penn State over the years because I always knew in the biggest games, bowl games, or at the end of the season, that they would not get the job done. not just not cover. They just wouldn't get the job done. And there's a lot of underachievement there. There's a question. But however, the one loss record speaks for itself that James Franklin won a lot of football games. But you can just tell the power of the booster or the alums that say, we can't lose these 2 or 3 games in a row. He has to go. I think this has been going on for quite some time, as Howard Griffith told us earlier in the podcast. But I just want to just point this out. If you're going to fire James Franklin, just like Bray got fired from Oregon State, or Pittman from Arkansas, or Trent Dilfer at UAB. I'm not saying he was a great coach, but he did get fired here in season. Mike Gundy being fired at Oklahoma State. Deshaun Foster at UCLA. Also Brent Pry from Virginia Tech got fired as well in season. If you're going to fire coaches, make sure that you find coaches that will be better than what you've had. Is Penn State going to be able to find something better than the 11, 12 years of James Franklin? You can do it. But if you just get just a hot coordinator, a hot defensive coordinator, a former head coach that's doing ESPN or Fox, that doesn't help your program. You don't know that you're going to win the national championship, because that's ultimately what it's about. Penn State's got plenty of money, clearly enough to be able to buy out James Franklin. But can you find someone better? It's like when Dan Mullen got fired from Florida, and they've been just spinning their wheels ever since. They're going to fire another coach, probably in season here at Florida. You could do that, but just understand, when you fire someone that's great from a one-loss record standpoint, you got to be able to find someone that can get you to the next level. And I'm not sure if that person's out there for Penn State. I can understand when you have coaches that have struggled, that's underachieved greatly, like a Trent Dilfer or someone like that, or Deshaun Foster, who's just, I don't even know if he's qualified for the job, quite frankly, to be a head coach at UCLA. From the press conference on, it just seemed like he was going backwards. But I just think that when you fire a coach, you got to make sure that you find someone that can be able to get you to the championship level that you've been looking for as a program. It's good to hear from Howard Griffith, my friend from the Big Ten Network, Southside Zone, breaking down college football for us and previewing USC and Notre Dame. I'd like to let you know that not only can you catch this show on YouTube, but also on the podcast, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Look for Under the Hood with Jonathan Hood. The audio is right there as well. So thanks so much for checking us out. Don't forget to find me on the Cap and J Hood Morning Show, weekday morning, 6 to 10. 6 to 10, my God, 6 to 9 on ESPN 1000, and also on the ESPN Chicago app. Did I just add an hour to the Cap and J Hood Morning Show? Oh, no, that's another 100 and 250. Let's see. That's another $500,000. They can't add me for another hour. If not, they could buy me out. All right. Thanks so much for checking out Under the Hood with Jonathan Hood. So long, everybody.